I repeat, you should all read The Prodigal Son, even you all, during this week. In fact, I'd recommend you not just read it, but that you try and pray it. Really read it slowly again and again and identify with Jesus, with the Father, with the older son and younger son. It's a good story, and prayerfully read, it can actually change us. The readings today, and so many of the readings of the Bible, are about the mercy and love of God. And this is clearly a case in point. Even though I mixed the A and C cycle, the first reading from the C cycle, it's the day that the people finally arrive at and find the fulfillment of God's promise that they would go to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they celebrate the Passover, and the scripture says it was the last day they ate that nasty manna from heaven that they didn't even like, and instead ate from the fruit of the land. And this was a great moment, a passing over for them also. And so they rejoiced in the great mercy and love of God. And the scriptures in the second reading invite us and the psalm to appreciate the mercy of God that comes to us through Jesus Christ, and how we have been reconciled and saved, and how we bring that to one another. But this reading today from the A cycle is for the elect here, our catechumens elect. And in this story, you just heard it, there's a blind man. But unlike a lot of people who might become blind in life, he was born blind. And the scripture makes a great point of this, saying, you know, people who have become blind have been cured, but they said, no one's ever heard of someone born blind getting their sight. But he got his sight. And it was simply because Jesus invited him. He wanted to see, of course, and so he invited him, and he rubbed the clay, the saliva mixture on his eyes, told him to go wash in the pool, and he was clean. The problem is, he did it on a Sabbath, a Saturday, which was their holy day, and it was forbidden by the law. But also the scribes and Pharisees didn't like Jesus. They were jealous and had all kinds of feelings against him. So this huge scene develops between the blind man and the scribes and Pharisees who are questioning him. And they did some things. They accused him or his parents of being great sinners. That could be the only explanation why he was born blind. And when that gets asked of Jesus, he says, neither he nor his parents were sinners. That's not the reason. In fact, he says, the reason for this, and this is John, he says, the reason for this is so that God's glory could be seen. He's going to open the eyes of everybody, God is, through this great miracle. And so what happens is this questioning goes back and forth. And they, first of all, keep accusing Jesus, but also they are ramping up against anyone who allies himself with Jesus. They insisted that if anyone said he was the anointed one, they're going to throw him out of the synagogue, and that's what they finally did to him. They threw him out of the synagogue because he said, well, he must be the prophet. He's the one. And they say, how dare you? Who do you think you are to say that? He says, look, all I'm saying is, I was born blind, I could not see, and this man came and touched me, and now I can see. It's obvious to me. And here's the beauty of the story. We're talking, as John often does in his gospel, of two levels. He got his sight. He was like this for years. And Jesus rubbed the saliva and mud on his eyes and clay and washed it off, and OMG! OMG! He could see physically. But the real power of this gospel goes deeper, way down to the very core and center of his being, his spirit. He came to see that Jesus was Christ, and he didn't see it automatically and immediately. Jesus invited him, and he asked him, do you want to see this one, the anointed one? And he says, well, who is he? Sure, I would, but I don't know who he is. Who is he? And Jesus says, it's the one who gave you your sight. In fact, you're looking at him right now. That's a great answer. Hello? Hello? You're looking at him. And he puts his faith in Jesus immediately. This is what this is about for you. We're asking you, are you coming to see Jesus clearly in your life? When you hear these stories, what does it do to you? I'll tell you what it does to me. I hear this story and I say, Jesus, I get it. You want me to see what you teach me, to see it more clearly. So, for example, you teach about forgiving people. I see what you're saying, and I want the same in my heart. You talk about being generous and serving other people, and I see, Lord, I see what you're saying. I see that you want me to become a generous, loving person. You talk about forgiveness, and I see what you're saying. I see why you're saying it, because when you don't forgive, you walk around all through your life with a poop face. But when you forgive, it changes. You let go of it, and you become free. I see it. And I see that your words about forgiveness are so powerful that when you hung on the cross, you could even say this after they spit on you and stripped you and beat you and rejected you and hated you and ridiculed you and bullied you and are putting you to death and force you to carry the cross. And as you're dying on the cross, nailed to it, you have the spirit that says, Father, forgive them all. They know not what they do. God, bless them. Bless my killers. Bless my persecutors. I see what you're inviting me to. So today, we celebrate the second scrutiny because to hear this word, to hear it and believe, to see it and believe, then it's coming back to ourselves to say, is there anything in me that blocks this word or prevents this word from being powerful to me? And that's why we look at our sinfulness during Lent. Not that we necessarily can or will become perfect, but that we just take a few steps to grow. So we look at our selfishness, we look at our anger, we look at our fears, we look at our inability to forgive, we look at our unwillingness to ask for forgiveness, we look at our stinginess, we look at the things that block our lives, that prevent us from really being free inside. And if we can say like the blind man, now I see, now I get it, Lord, that's what you want for me, then something powerful can happen. So we're going to share our second scrutiny, and of course, even though it is the catechumens elect who are scrutinizing their lives, we're also all invited to scrutinize our own. So if you could all go to your places with your godparent.